People who play RuneScape will always play RuneScape. And there's no
Little did we know, RuneScape players are still standing strong across the world. Just the silent majority.
the silent majority. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Cort. Cort recently had traveled to the Dominican Republic to help the people there learn English. Unfortunately, however, shortly after arriving, Cort got lost in the dense forest of the Dominican jungles and didn't know where he was. Meanwhile, Cort's friends eagerly awaited him to join their podcast recording. They had planned a special episode and were excited to have Cort's unique perspective. But as the time for recording approached, Cort was nowhere to be found. Cort tried to tell them he wouldn't be there, but he didn't know if they got his message before he got lost. Cort wandered for hours in the jungle to no avail. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Cort stumbled upon a familiar landmark that led him out of the jungle and back to safety. After reaching back to his home, he explained what had happened and apologized for not being able to make it to the last 2 weeks of podcast recording. His friends understood, relieved that he was safe and sound. And now we find ourselves here, at episode 4 of season 4 of Knights of the D-Pad. We found him. Cort's done being lost in the Dominican jungle.
It was a harrowing experience, being lost in the jungle for 2 weeks. I died a couple times.
Came back to life.
Pretty intense. Yeah. Lost a lot of friends along the way.
Maybe the real Dominican Republic was the friends we made along the way.
The friends we made along the way. I killed a tiger with my bare hands. I don't know if they actually live here, but maybe they do. And
Eric, I can inform you, no tigers in the Dominican Republic, except for maybe a zoo.
I killed
How would
a tiger.
you know? Have you been there, Ben?
I know where tigers live because I need to be prepared for.
Cort shows up on the beach and goes, "I know where we are. The San Diego Zoo."
San Diego.
San Diego. Anyways, we have Cort back.
I love that movie.
He's chilling.
I'm here.
He's been teaching the cheering, all the English.
What?
English.
It's the cheering.
Not on this podcast. I don't think.
Okay. He's okay.
Yes, I've been teaching all the little Dominican Republic kiddos English to various degrees of success. It is. I mean, I'm a teacher for a living. Like, that's what I do normally. And it is much more difficult to teach when you don't speak their language and they don't speak any of your language, because most of them are too young to even speak their own language fluently. And so, because like a lot of the kids I'm working with are like little babies. Anyway, but so it's fun. They don't understand anything I'm saying 90% of the time, and I don't understand anything they're saying 100% of the time.
You gotta get
Have
really
you
good.
tried learning Spanish?
There you go.
I have been. I've been doing my Duolingo. I've been doing, lots of Spanish study. But even if I did understand Spanish, I don't think I'd be able to understand them most of the time because, again, they're really, really little. So they're just like.
You gotta get really good at charades.
It's like hard enough
Dictionary.
They're just like, what?
Understand an
Excuse me,
English-speaking
how
little
are the
kid.
children?
How are the? Ah, okay.
They're just little zombies.
Yeah.
They're little Minecraft zombies. Like the little kid
Minecraft
versions of the
zombies.
Minecraft zombies. They
Baby
run really
zombies.
fast. And, yeah. Anyway, but no, it's fun. Having a fun time out here, going to fun beaches and wearing cool shirts. So what more can you ask for?
I don't know. You tell him.
Massive tarantulas to not be near you.
Oh, that.
There actually was one in our
No.
Ben's in
Not-
our family group chat, so he saw it when we sent it. But yeah, in one of our little like classrooms that we have in our like half of the big house that we stay in, or not half, but like a section of the big house we stay in is like a school.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a straight up huge tarantula just like there, which
Oh.
was on the first floor, which the boys area is also on the first floor. So it was just like a couple rooms away pretty much, which, is not
That
great
sounds
to see.
exciting.
I mean, it was legit about the size of his hand, so.
I believe it.
Ugh,
I believe
that's
it.
horrifying.
It was fun. We had to decapitate it. We couldn't squish it. It was too big, so we had to get a
You killed it?
I didn't. Someone else did.
Oh.
I wasn't. I wasn't actually here when they found it. I was somewhere else, but I saw like pictures. But
Oh.
one of the other people got like a, what are they called? Like, you know how there's like the sweeper, you know, there's a broom and there's a pan that you use with a broom.
The
I don't know
dustpan?
The dustpan?
Dustpan, that's the word for it.
Cort has not swept enough to...
I just call it the broom and then the little broom thing. Anyway,
It's-
but
The
the dustpan.
broom, the little broom thing.
Anyway, got a dustpan and like guillotined it pretty much, like cut it in half.
Oh.
Which was pretty hardcore. But
That is pretty
so-
hardcore.
after that, we all thoroughly sprayed every inch of our bedrooms and all the other rooms with every kind of pesticide imaginable,
Mhm.
and it's worked
Yep.
so far. So
Cort's like,
He's
my throat
alive.
is a little
He's
funny.
feeling great. Yeah.
Yeah, Cort's
That's so
alive
great.
for now. When he's not
Mhm.
here next week, we'll know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
it was
Well,
bitten
no.
by.
He was bitten by a Dominican Republic spider, who is
I
out
Right.
to.
mean,
Got,
tarantulas
like-
aren't deadly.
He died from all the toxins and the pesticides.
My
Yeah,
name
that's
is.
that's more likely to kill me. I honestly, genuinely felt sick after spraying all those pesticides. Like for the next day, my throat was like. I was like, I'm
Ah, so you sounded like, apparently, according to you, the children that you're teaching.
No, I was the older version. They were. I'm the regular zombie. They're the little baby zombies.
Okay. Anyways.
Secretly, Cort is not in the Dominican Republic, but he is instead raising an army of zombies.
Yeah,
Minecraft.
let's in Minecraft, not in real life.
Necromancer Cort.
Necromancer Court.
Lich King Cort.
Anyways, we're glad to have you back, Cort. Despite you
Glad to
being
be back.
far away and many time zones ahead of us.
Yeah.
We've got fun news going on. Let's start. You know what? Cort, we'll let you start with your daily shilling of Fortnite since it's been a minute.
The time has come. All right. So, basically, I haven't really had a chance to play much Fortnite. Actually, I haven't played any Fortnite since I've been here. You know, so I'm going
Heresy.
through withdrawals.
Mhm.
You know, and but so I've been keeping up with it because I want to know what's happening, and it's pretty cool. Like, not really anything like super game changing going on right now, but just
I mean,
since it's like, well, there is that, but Aidan stole that from me,
That's
so he'll
not
talk about that
Fortnite
later.
necessarily.
Well, I was
It
just
is,
thinking, like,
but-
I don't know if we talked too much about the new season changes with like the movement changes, the
Oh yeah,
like
there was- I
weapon
think we did
customization.
a little bit, but that was a while ago. But yeah, a while ago they switched chapters, so they you know, every few seasons they switch to a new chapter, and then that changes the whole map, the whole everything. This one had some pretty major changes with, yeah, like Ben was saying, they made movement a little slower, and
They
then reverted that
invented
a little bit.
movement.
They invented movement.
There's
They,
like crazy like wall climbing stuff now.
yeah, there's like wall
So like
climbing.
you can't just build a 1x1 and get away. They will scale your walls like the zombies from World War Z.
Yeah, actually. And then like they updated all the, like a lot of the animations, made them just more fluid and look more like
Mhm.
realistic. The guns have a lot more realistic bullet drop now. And there's like a whole like weapon attachment system. So like you have like different kinds of scopes you can add and different kinds of things, and it's not quite as complicated as like CODs, you know, because Fortnite is built to a certain degree on its simplicity. I feel like it doesn't want to get too complicated. It doesn't want to get to anything,
Mhm.
but it has that extra layer now where it's kind of like guns will just spawn with different attachments, like different scopes that will do different things, or different grips, different muzzles, or different under things. And then there's very like specific like mod benches around the map where you can buy and add different ones, but it doesn't, like, the game is still fundamentally the same, but just like fun little things to add it to keep it fresh, keep it different, you know. But in more recent development, like yesterday recent, a little while ago they brought in one of their latest collaborations was with the Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they brought the four Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They brought the 4 turtles and April O'Neil, the reporter gal, who's like their, you know, I'm not a huge Ninja Turtle fan, but she's in it. And anyway, and they brought her too. And like the cosmetics are super sick. Like I'm not a huge Ninja Turtle fan, but I got the Leonardo one because like each of the ones is like a different turtle, and then it's like their like iconic weapon and like with brand new animations for each of the turtle. Like I don't like it was definitely a collab that they put a lot of effort into, and people were really happy with it. And then it came and went, and we were like, oh, that was neat, you know, like that was a fun, like those are some cool skins. And then out of nowhere, like 2 months later, they were like, oh, just kidding, we weren't done, you know, and they popped out
Shredder.
Yeah, like they popped out this whole like event thing now. So like it's like this big event where there's like its own mini battle pass for this event, which they've done in the past with other things, but this one it's like, and it's got like Shredder and like Splinter is in there. The Ninja Turtles are back and all the other things, and it's like in the game you can find like the turtles different weapons, like the bow staff and the nunchucks and the swords and stuff, and then they all like work as like these cool mythic weapons that you can use, and they're super powerful, and you can just find them in these like drops and stuff. And there's like a little like Ninja Turtle hideout lair and like you know, a bunch of new stuff like that. Anyway, just a bunch of cool stuff. And a lot of cool, like fun little quests you can do that are Ninja Turtle themed to level up that Ninja Turtle Battle Pass. And anyway, if you're a big Ninja Turtle fan,
Ninja Turtle Battle Pass.
Even if you're not, it's
Cowabunga,
still
dude,
one
am
of
I
the.
right?
I don't think I've seen them put this much effort into a crossover since they did their last big Star Wars crossover, and you know, so like. That Star Wars and Marvel are probably the two that they put the most effort into, and this is you know, definitely up there too. Like they've changed quite a lot and added quite a bit. So anyway, kind of fun. Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtle.
Well, I guess now related to Fortnite only because of its parent company. So Disney made an announcement a couple days ago where they were like
bought Epic Games.
Yeah. The FTC would have loved that one. So Disney announced that them and Epic Games are gonna basically Epic Games is now like the go-to developer and company for video games related to Disney for the most part. Disney like invested or will invest $1.5 billion of equity into Epic Games. Now I don't know how much of an ownership that will give Disney Epic.
That's about 10%.
So about 10% share of Epic.
Yeah.
That's so yeah. So it's basically, and so instead of like a formal agreement like what Disney had with EA before, because that was what had been in place initially, like in 2015 or whatever, is Disney signed an agreement with EA. Instead of an agreement with Epic, Disney's just like, we're gonna buy some of Epic and you're gonna make our games now. I mean, that was. But it's not an exclusive agreement, so it's like unlike the EA one, which made us all upset because EA, their quality of games is, you know, it up for debate. Epic is just kind of like Disney will work with Epic to make some games, but then there are other companies that are still free to do.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, because you still got like Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, so we're not like we're not locked into the Epic style of games being the only thing that Disney is able to create. Because if that were the case, then I would be a little upset, because as much as good as Epic is, their you know, their style of games is you know.
Well, I don't know. Have y'all seen Wreck-It Ralph 2?
Yes.
Do you know kind of like the Disney internet website thing? It looks like they are essentially just making that, but in like the Epic Games launcher. Like you're going to join this like experience with like like how there's Lego Fortnite and the rocket racing. It looks like there's going to be like a whole Lego experience, or I guess Disney experience inside of the Fortnite launcher, where you go in and then you have this map, with all these like game modes and all this kind of. It's like because what I'm seeing like screenshots of what they're planning on doing, and they've got like little islands of different parts of Disney's media empire
Yeah.
with like you've got like Cartoon Island and like Marvel and ESPN Island and like
Yeah, I was gonna say because you were saying not related to Fortnite directly, and I was gonna say that's not entirely true because along with this huge purchase, they also announced this big like Disney. What's the persistent universe? I don't think that's what it's called, but actually, but that's like its
Persistent
internal
universe.
or like consistent. I can't remember something universe.
extended universe.
Extended you no, but like that they're working on where essentially where Fortnite now has, its 4 major modes. It's got its Battle Royale, Lego, Rocket Racing, and its Fortnite Festival, its music mode. That
Like,
essentially what it seems
Guitar
like, we don't
Hero.
know a whole ton about it right now, but what it seems like is that they're adding a 5th, and it's this
Hub world.
Disney experience where you can kind of like, they say you'll be able to watch, like watch Disney stuff, shop, do Disney shopping, play different Disney themed games, do different Disney things. They showed like a concept art for it, like Ben was saying,
Yeah,
and
they
it's got
did.
all these different islands and
So
like, it
essentially, they're just taking Disney World and just putting it in Fortnite.
yeah, kind of. It kind of seems like it's basically like a digital Disney World that they're putting in Fortnite, where you can do all these different things. And then along with that, they also mentioned that they're gonna start collaborating a lot more heavily with Disney things and bringing them to Fortnite. So like we know like Avatar, not Last Airbender, but Blue People.
Blue people.
Blue People Avatar is gonna be coming in pretty soon. Jack Sparrow, different like a lot more
Blue
Disney
people.
properties are gonna be brought into Fortnite because of this agreement. And then also just like whatever this big Disney mode is, we really don't know. Some people are saying, oh, it's going to be like Disney Infinity 5.0, basically, and some people are saying,
maybe.
oh, it's going to be a digital, was it 5.0 or 4? I can't remember. But anyway, it's going to be like a digital Disneyland, or it's going to be, something along those lines, but it'll be cool. It'll probably be cool.
Who knows? I'm just happy that it's not an exclusive agreement. That is
definitely.
the only. I'm like, Disney, Epic, you can do whatever you want, and it's not exclusive, so we're okay. Because if it was an exclusive agreement, I would start having issues.
Because there's definitely still, you've got games like Outlaws coming out by
Outlaws.
Ubisoft. You've got the Indiana Jones game being made by Bethesda. And it should stay that way.
It should.
Like Marvel and Star Wars and even just Disney games in general. Yeah, locking them to one publisher is just stupid on so many different levels. Like let other let publishers
Let other
take a
people
crack
cook.
at them,
Let them cook.
Yeah. But so I'm glad. Yeah, I am glad that they're still doing that. But it seems like they're pretty like heavily.
Yeah.
But yeah.
On the topic though of exclusive agreements, or I guess buyouts. So the extensive Blizzard Microsoft buyout that took place over the course of a year and a half went through and everything. But then we had all these layoffs that took place over the last couple weeks at Microsoft. And Microsoft laid off what seemed like primarily Blizzard employees. It was a lot of Blizzard Activision employees that were laid off, which caused the FTC to get unhappy and file a claim against Microsoft, saying that these layoffs go against what was said in the deal, where Microsoft said that Blizzard Activision will operate largely as an independent company, even though it's owned by Microsoft. And so the FTC was claiming that Microsoft going in and laying off a bunch of Blizzard employees is breaking that promise of letting Blizzard be independent by claiming that's oh, Microsoft is firing these people. They shouldn't be doing that. They said that they'd take their hands off. As much as, as bad as laying people off are, I don't think the FTC has an argument here, unfortunately, because it wasn't just Microsoft laying people off. Every big game industry, every big game company, Riot was doing it, Epic did it, Twitch did it. Everyone's been laying people off in the last year. So Microsoft laying off Blizzard employees for redundancy purposes after the buyout is unrelated.
It has nothing to do with the buyout.
Has nothing
really.
to do with the buyout, really, because that was what Microsoft claimed, is that these layoffs would have happened regardless of the buyout, and they just happened to coincide. I thought it was really funny that the FTC made that claim, because like, really, just leave it alone. Like, you're not gonna win this one. But they insisted.
They're still salty that Microsoft was able to buy Activision in the first place.
That is the issue that they were having. But on the flip side, when it comes to Microsoft, Microsoft also made some interesting announcements recently about the future of the company. Cort, if you want to tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so nothing official so far, but there have been a lot of like insider rumblings and stuff about essentially Microsoft bringing a lot of their big Xbox exclusives to the PlayStation and kind of ending, not surrendering the console war, but kind of surrendering the console war. Just being like, hey, you know what?
Pulling
Like,
a Sega.
yeah, and just being like, like we're not gonna, and it seems like, there's been talks of, Phil Spencer has kind of seemed like he's had that attitude of, we want to be inclusive to all players regardless of console. He's been using that kind of language for a while. And so it seems like the big rumors are that, there were rumors, and then there was something that kind of confirmed the rumors, and now the rumors are getting even stronger. But essentially, the original rumor was Starfield and Hi-Fi Rush, which are both
Bethesda.
Xbox, yeah, like Bethesda games, would be coming to, Starfield would be coming to PS5, and Hi-Fi Rush would be coming to PS5 and Switch. And people were like, oh, okay, like from pretty reliable insiders, like that's an interesting thing. And then Hi-Fi Rush got an update, or I might be wrong on this, but Hi-Fi Rush got some kind of update or something, and in the files, internally, people found evidence.
We love data miners.
Of an imminent Switch and PS5 version. And so people were like, oh dang, like, pretty, from what I understand, pretty irrefutable evidence that Hi-Fi Rush is coming to PS5 and Switch. And so people were like, well, if that's true, the chances of Starfield coming to PS5 just shot up. That's a huge deal. And and then there were some other things that were also pointing towards the new Indiana Jones game being limited exclusivity to Xbox for a tiny bit, and then moving to PS5 pretty quickly. And it kind of seems like basically the insider thing is, the thing going on right now is that it seems like the discussion is basically that there's a pretty big party at Microsoft that says, let's just focus on making games. Like, let's just focus on making games, running Game Pass, and putting out and like, what's the word I'm trying to use here? Like, and putting stuff on other consoles, just making stuff for Game Pass, and like putting out games and running Game Pass. And that's Microsoft, that's Xbox's thing, like, not worry about making our own consoles, not worry about fighting this console war, stuff like that, and just, stop making things exclusive and all that stuff. And then there's another party that's kind of like, no, like, we need our exclusives, we need this, and they're kind of at war, from what it kind of sounds like. But it sounds like the side of leaning away from exclusives and kind of becoming more of a game making company rather than a console making company and game making company is the direction that it's leading. And these rumors have been persistent and persistent enough that Phil Spencer responded to them on Twitter and was basically just like, yeah, like, we got some stuff in the works, and like, I'm not going to tell you about it right now, but
we'll get to it later.
Tune into this broadcast where we're going to talk about the future of Xbox, and it's like in 2 days or something. I can't remember. It's soon. Like, it's really soon. It's sometime this month. And he's like, and so the speculation on what this broadcast about the future of Xbox is going to mean is essentially ranging from, it's probably either going to be something like on the lighter end, hey, we're going to bring some of our exclusives to PlayStation eventually, like Starfield and Indiana Jones and stuff like that, to on the higher end of like,
we are no longer making consoles.
yeah, we're going to move away. Like, we won't be making a successor to the Series X, Series S. We're not making consoles. We're going to put Game Pass on PlayStation. We're going to put Game Pass on Switch, and we're going to, just make it a full-blown, we make games for other consoles. That's our thing.
What an announcement that would be if Phil Spencer went up and went, we're no longer making Xboxes. Game Pass is coming to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. Everyone would lose their minds.
Oh, yeah. Everyone would lose their minds. And so it could be, or it could be something completely different. But it seems likely that it's essentially somewhere along that line of either on the one end, on the lighter end, yeah, like some exclusives will be coming to the other consoles too. We're just done making consoles, and there won't be a success for the Series X, Series S. But we'll see. It's in a couple of days, but it seems like whatever it is, it'll probably make for great news for next week or whenever.
Well, what's interesting is that like that like line of thinking of like, oh, let's move away from making consoles and instead move to just making games and spreading it out is like kind of the discussion that people thought Nintendo was eventually going to maybe move to, like when the Wii U was a flop and a half, and like people were wondering like, oh, like what's Nintendo gonna do? So it's interesting that Microsoft may be the first of the big three to pull out of the console industry and actually transition and do basically what Sega did in the 90s and early 2000s of after the Dreamcast of like, it's not worth it, and just move.
It kind of makes sense though, because I think from what I understand, for the past few console generations, PlayStations have been outselling Xboxes pretty.
It's always been that way.
Yeah, pretty consistent.
It's always been like that. And even in this most recent one, I'm pretty sure with the Switch, I think Xbox is third. I'm pretty sure the Switch well outsold the Xbox.
It seems like, and it kind of, I don't know, it would make sense from a certain standpoint too, because then you'd have, I think what would essentially happen if this happens is it would become basically PC makers make PCs, and they're the big customizable powerhouses, that PCs are, and then consoles are a Sony thing, like normal, just like PC power level consoles, are a Sony thing that are made for the PlayStation, and they pretty much have the market on that. And then Nintendo is like the hybrid, weird, the weird portable, like experimental, like they do what they want, and
I'm telling you, the next Nintendo console is gonna be a freaking VR headset. That's the console. It's just a headset.
Something crazy. Yeah, but so I think that'll probably, if this happens, that'll probably be because of those three categories, Xbox and PlayStation are the only one.
Yeah.
They fill the same space right now. Neither of them is doing anything crazy like Nintendo's doing. Neither of them are PCs. They're both the consoles. So I think
the only overlap with PC is with Microsoft, because they make Windows, which is the predominant PC operating system. So I feel like it would make more sense for Microsoft to pull out of the console war and focus on making games for their own software and making games that are even more optimized for Windows and for the PC market, because they technically already have the corner on the PC software market.
Yeah.
And still making stuff for consoles for sure. Like, I mean, I think it seems like, if I had to guess, I'd think that their plan, I don't know. I think it seems not unlikely that the next generation of consoles
will be a new Nintendo and a new Sony console, and that's it.
Yeah, and that could be kind of it going forward. There's PCs, there's the Sony console, then there's whatever
weird thing Nintendo
decides to do. Exactly. Yeah. Like
I could see Microsoft, if they drop out of the console market, focusing more on the cloud gaming and the Game Pass stuff. If they pulled out of the console market, I wouldn't be surprised to see them trying to do some collabs with Nvidia or with AMD or something to make certain cards or GPUs, or even with Intel, and make certain CPUs work better with Game Pass than before. because they're like, oh, we don't have a console, we don't have to put money into a console, so let's work on like hardware,
Yeah.
make hardware better for PC gamers or make it better for people with a PlayStation instead of putting millions into their own hardware.
And
Honestly, the thing
like,
is, just real quick, like streaming is just getting like game streaming is just getting so much better and faster
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
the question is how much longer are people going to be like, well, why would I spend $2,000 on a gaming PC
A gaming PC when
when
you
I
can
could
spend like
$12
it's like
a month
$10
on
a month
Nvidia
for yeah.
yeah.
And
I think-
Yeah. No, that's what I had that same debate with my husband the other day. I'm like, why would we buy a fancy gaming PC when you can just use the Nvidia service?
Yeah. And I think part of Xbox dropping out of the console war, if they are, it might just be kind of a preemptive move to, predict that. Like,
they're feeling the winds and being like, I don't think the money isn't in the consoles anymore.
yeah, they're kind of like, if the consoles are going to become basically irrelevant in a few
Mhm.
years, why waste all the resources to make a new one? Like,
Yeah.
which it'll be an interesting thing to see how that pans out. But I also think that Microsoft has kind of struck gold a little bit with Game Pass. If I had to
They
guess,
have.
I think Game
yeah.
Pass
Mhm.
has been like more successful than they ever could have dreamed. I mean, I don't know about that, but like it's been very good for them, and I think they're kind of realizing like
That's where the money is.
maybe we just do this, like maybe we
Yeah.
maybe we focus on this because it's making us a ton of money and people really like it, and it's great for the consumer. I mean, like I love Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like it's so nice. Like, and if I were able to get if I were able to just suddenly get Game Pass on my PS5 and my Switch, that'd be amazing.
Mhm.
Like that'd be so cool. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting thought, but we'll have to see where Microsoft ends up taking
We'll
it.
see where Microsoft ends up taking us in a couple years. Sticking on the storylines of game companies, RuneScape. Any RuneScape enjoyers?
Never
Yeah,
played
really.
RuneScape. I've got a ton of friends who have. I just have
This
never actually played
I
it
mean
myself.
I did not have RuneScape on my news bingo board for this week.
Mhm.
But sure enough, here we are.
I remember my brother had a RuneScape poster in his bedroom. He played RuneScape a lot, so I remember watching him play RuneScape all the time. And the maker of RuneScape, Jagex, I think is how you pronounce that.
Mhm.
The maker and publisher, they were acquired in a deal thought to be worth £900 million, which in US dollars, that's about $1.13 billion. So
Which in US
that's
dollars is about 3 cents.
The euro isn't that. The pounds aren't that bad.
I'm
Wait,
good, I'm good.
Mhm.
3 cents.
I'm
I'm honestly surprised that it was that much. Like I knew, we know RuneScape was big, but I didn't think it was still
Yeah.
big enough to be worth have an acquisition north of $1 billion.
I was shocked to see that big number there but apparently they are planning on releasing a new game soon. Scum.
RuneScape 2.
I looked at it. It's like not at all like RuneScape. It's like prison survival.
So they're
prison
taking a
escape?
Minecraft prison server and making a game.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. But
It ain't room.
yeah, they
Well,
were acquired for a
unfortunately,
lot
it
of money,
can't
which
be
I was
RuneScape.
I was very surprised by how much it was acquired for, because RuneScape was released like more than 20 years ago.
Dawn of Man.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
dawn of mankind is when RuneScape was released. That's $1 billion for a game that at this point is just a meme on the internet. Is crazy.
Yeah.
How many people even play RuneScape still? Like, no hate if you do.
Like
Really?
I know the SAO abridged meme is EverQuest, but when was you want us to beat MMO? Essentially, screw you. When was the last time you heard of someone beating EverQuest? When was the last time you heard of someone playing EverQuest? Except it's RuneScape. The problem
I mean,
is,
I loved playing RuneScape when I was,
Yeah, I
when
didn't
was
ever
younger.
play it.
I haven't touched it in a while, but
because
like-
the problem with RuneScape is that it is an MMORPG, but it's like when you have things like World of Warcraft and Star Wars: The Old Republic out, like the only reason people play RuneScape at this point in time is just nostalgia. Like no one legitimately is all like, man, you know what the best game ever made was? RuneScape, and it totally holds up in
RuneScape.
2024. Like no one, unfortunately, no one is saying that.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. We don't know who all plays RuneScape. Like,
I don't think anyone genuinely
just-
believes RuneScape holds up in 2024, Cort.
RuneScape has 357,000 players per day.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, like the people who love RuneScape. Like you're not gonna pull RuneScape lovers away from RuneScape. I'm just saying that it's not something that I would personally invest money into, banking like, oh, you know, RuneScape's gonna make it big. It's gonna make a comeback. Like I don't think RuneScape has like as a game is not capable of making a comeback, so to speak. But like it has a very loyal fan base.
I mean,
Like,
I
if
think
you-
honestly, if they release some kind of like, big like RuneScape 2.0 thing that was
Oh well,
like,
I mean, yeah. Well, if they made a
like,
revamped RuneScape,
updated for like a more modern, I'd play it.
yeah,
I'd give it a
I'm talking
shot,
like
for
I'm
sure.
talking about RuneScape as is now. Like if they didn't do anything with it, like the fact that it's even worth north of $1 billion is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So old school RuneScape has about 1.3 million active players, and then
Wait, there's a wait, I didn't even realize RuneScape was like necessitated having a classic RuneScape.
yeah, RuneScape, like what you probably imagine as a RuneScape is old school RuneScape.
Yeah.
There's like a newer RuneScape that has like higher graphics and whatever, but I guess people just prefer the older style. And so
that checks out.
modern RuneScape has about 350,000 active players, but old school RuneScape has about 1.3. It's the third highest
Yeah.
played MMO.
Wow. Okay, so then I guess that does make a
Wow.
little more sense then. Yeah.
It's higher than World of Warcraft, Warframe, Final
Wow.
Fantasy 16, or
Well, I mean,
it's
yeah, I mean
14.
it's been out for when it's been out as long as it has and had the charm that it did. I mean, people who play RuneScape will always play RuneScape. And there's no
Little did we know, RuneScape players are still standing strong across the world. Just the silent majority.
the silent majority. The
Yeah.
RuneScape silent majority. No, Cort. So I mean, well, maybe we'll see how this acquisition, if it affects RuneScape directly at all, or if it just kind of is left alone and the company's just owned. So, good stuff there.
Yeah.
Then the final piece of stuff here, it took me a second to figure out like what exactly you're referring to with this, but I think I figured it out. So Hogwarts Legacy versus Tears of the Kingdom, is this for most sales of 2023?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a sale battle.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, I just saw that, like that's a pretty small thing, but it just blew me away. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy in the last little legs of 2023 overtook Tears of the Kingdom as the best-selling game of the year. Which, I mean, if you had told me that, you know, in 2022, end of 2022, and you asked me what's the best-selling game of next year, I would have been like,
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. Like, it's not even a question, like, and
No question.
like Hogwarts Legacy, like I would have imagined, like, if you had told me Hogwarts Legacy, I wouldn't have not believed you, but it would have been hard to believe. I would have had to, like, I would think that Hogwarts Legacy must have come
If
out.
somebody
and been, like,
asked me at the end of 2022
crazy
which
game.
game is going to sell more, Hogwarts Legacy,
Legacy
or
or
Tears of the Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
It's,
and to be fair, Hogwarts Legacy does have a pretty massive advantage in that it sold on 4 different platforms
instead of 1.
instead
Yeah.
of just Tears of the Kingdom's 1. So like that's a huge advantage. But still, like, I mean,
I think
and
that
honestly,
says
like-
I think that says more about the power of Legend of Zelda than it does Hogwarts, like, because it's like, you think about it, it's like if you, like, I'm sorry, Cort, but if you compare the name brand value of Harry Potter and Legend of Zelda, I think Harry Potter
Harry
clearly,
Potter wins.
like,
Harry Potter wins.
so like the fact that Legend of Zelda even was close to being able to beat it, despite having lesser name recognition, like they both still have crazy, but like lesser name recognition overall, and only being on one platform versus 4. I think that says a lot about Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, I do think it's crazy though, because I think part of the reason why I would have been surprised in 2022 is because I don't really think I was expecting Hogwarts Legacy to be good going into 2023.
I don't think anyone.
Like,
we had high hopes for it, but nobody expected it to be kind of what it was.
But not expecting it. And honestly, it was stellar. Like, I mean, like I remember playing the game, and I remember having an absolute blast with it. Like,
well, I remember thinking I'm surprised that it sold that much. Like, even when you think of the controversy that was around it on release, like a large portion of the fan base did not want to play that game, and probably still hasn't, because of everything circulating J.K. Rowling and stuff.
Well, you say that, but the fan base, I mean, the Harry Potter fan base is insanely loyal to Harry Potter, even.
Well, there's a
regardless of J.K. Rowling.
There just was a
J.K. Rowling were mostly.
There was a portion of the fan base though that didn't want to play the game, and it's probably the vocal minority, definitely, but there was a portion of the fan base, like a lot of the influencer fan base, was not wanting to play
it. It's why Hogwarts Legacy didn't show up at all at the Game Awards, because it can't, but which is a whole other thing. But I mean, like, I feel like most hardcore Harry Potter fans, they're already hardcore Harry Potter fans, and so like they've either made peace with any J.K. Rowling thing, or they just don't care, or like don't agree with all the.
Or they separated J.K. Rowling from the.
They separate J.K. Rowling from the franchise itself.
And so it's like they're just gonna go and play it anyway. I feel like a lot of the people that were against it were kind of like not quite as hardcore Harry Potter fans. I mean, I just know that like it really reached like a lot of people. Like, I don't know, like I had a friend who, like a high school friend who has never played video games. I mean, she's played like a couple rounds of Smash Bros and some Mario Kart, maybe.
As one does.
Like, never, but she is a huge, massive Harry Potter fan, right? And so, like, she knew that this game was coming out, and she was like mildly interested in it, and I was playing through it, and so she like came over and was like watching me play it. She's like, "This is so cool." And after I finished it, I was like, "I've got other games that I'm going to play on my PC, so I probably won't use my PS5 until Spider-Man 2 comes out." And so I was like, "Hey, do you want to borrow this and play Hogwarts Legacy?" And she was like, "Yes." And so she she took it, and she had to like learn how to use a controller and play games and stuff, but she ate it up. Like, she loved it. And it's like, I feel like there was probably a lot of stories like that of people who aren't really big gamers but are really big Harry Potter fans that kind of
video games because of the game,
because of Hogwarts Legacy. And it really just, I don't know, to me, the fact that it sold so well and that it's had this such great reception really goes to show that the power of
the brand,
like taking a recognized brand, when you take a recognized name brand and you treat it well and you make something with it that is a quality product, it does numbers. Like, it does so well. Like,
why do you think Fortnite crossovers are so successful?
Yeah, Fortnite crossover. Or I mean, like, it's just like so many like of these big, movie reboots or game things that are like based off these big things that just kind of like they do it bad. Like, they either just slap the name brand on it but don't really pay it any homage, or they just kind of like, or they just blatantly mistreat the source material and just actively disregard it and disrespect it. And then also
Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the stuff is bad. Like the game itself or the thing itself is bad. Like, yeah, it doesn't do well. But like, when you take a mix of having a beloved franchise and like super well-known name and then you make something quality with it that respects the
Mhm,
source
yeah.
material and like pays homage to the original stuff in like meaningful
It'll
ways
do
and is actually
numbers.
like a good game, it does really well. And Hogwarts Legacy, I feel like, is probably the most prominent example of that in recent times,
Yeah.
because
I
because
can't
Hogwarts
think
Legacy,
of
like
another one.
Hogwarts Legacy treats the Harry Potter like franchise and universe with like a ridiculous amount of respect. Like there are so
Mhm.
many little like Easter eggs and nods and like continuity things
Yeah.
like that are just like so like you can tell that at every point throughout its development, just it was being worked on by just the biggest Harry Potter fans that wanted to do this universe justice. And that
Mhm.
they ended up making a really good product. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it just blows me away that more companies don't do this. Like, but
Because
we've all,
paying for people who care about it costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
yeah.
They don't want the
Yeah.
money. They don't want to deal
Like
with
the
the money.
Pokemon Company system for making games. You
Yeah.
slap the name brand on and people will buy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. Yikes.
But anyway, so just kind of a hopeful note for the industry, I guess. I mean, yes, it's like sad that Tears of the Kingdom didn't sell #1, but again, like you were saying, really impressive that it got so far when it is not as widely known as Harry Potter and is
on a
only
quarter
It's
of
only
the
on one
platforms.
console.
But it's hopefully something that'll kind of show the rest of the industry that like, hey, they took this thing,
and I think
they made it well.
This Hogwarts
it-
Legacy having this kind of
so important.
success versus Tears. I mean, I feel like I don't think it will, but like wrapping back to the Microsoft thing, like if you're Microsoft and you're like, oh, this platform exclusive game versus this non-platform exclusive game, oh, one did better.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think it'll be really big for is, especially in this current climate that we have, where there's a lot of these always online. You got like the Suicide Squad
offline
game
single player,
that,
please.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like that's kind
Mhm.
of Suicide Squad's falling apart in large part because it was like an always online live service game, and you've got people being like, no one ever stopped asking for quality single player games. Please keep giving them
Yeah.
to us.
Hogwarts
And
Legacy, Tears of the
Hogwarts Legacy-
Kingdom, Spider-Man 2 is
Yeah.
also an offline, right? You can play it offline.
are all ground up offline single player narrative, like super like well developed experiences, and it's like, and they all sold so well because that's what a lot of people still want to play. And like other games like Fortnite and stuff that are live service,
like they have their
still
place,
have
but
their
it's
place
like
and still have their fans.
if
But
you-
it's like
if
you
you're gonna
can't
make-
abandon that.
if you're gonna make an always online game, the game needs to be made to fit the always online model, like a multiplayer game like Halo Infinite, like Fortnite, like Overwatch, like League of Legends.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna make a story-driven game where you play it's just you with running through a story, why do I need to be connected to the internet?
And why do I need like a battle pass?
Why do I need a battle pass in my single-player story game? Like what?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Can you imagine just like Legend of Zelda Battle Pass? Like, find 3 Koroks and you get this cool new arm skin instead of like
Oh
the
my
lame.
goodness.
I forget. I don't know the
No,
name
no,
of
no,
the
no.
the big like alpaca dude.
Dude,
But you
I
get a
genuinely
new
think
skin for that arm.
Nintendo would rather like pass away than put battle passes in their games.
Oh yeah. No.
Like,
Nintend's got way
Definitely.
too much class.
we're not
And it's
about to
like-
go out and here we go. Here comes the Mario Kart battle pass. Like no.
Yeah, like Mario Kart is such a good example of like, oh, you could put a battle pass,
But you don't
but
have
you
to.
don't need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
it's an
and like you
interesting-
can play Mario Kart without connecting to the internet. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can play
Yeah.
it single player. You can also play it with your friends online.
That's always
Yeah.
always been Nintendo's mantra is they make games that have online functionality, but you have to tell it, yes, I would like to play the online version. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
will not be online.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like it's an important line to tread because it's like those like always online multiplayer focused games are not inherently bad. Things like battle passes and stuff like that are not inherently negative, but
But
like,
they are for a certain system.
they are for certain
They
systems.
work
Yeah,
for
like a
systems.
game like Fortnite or a game like Apex or a game like, games like that where that works or like where it's done well, but yeah, like a game like Suicide Squad doesn't need that, And like they could have so easily made Hogwarts Legacy this like
You want the Hogwarts Battle Pass?
yeah, like this like cosmetics,
yeah.
microtransaction greed fest, just like, and
Well,
just
and
with
people would have paid for
no
it because they
People
love
would have
Harry
bought it.
Potter.
right.
That's a
But
problem.
they
Yeah,
didn't. They
there was
made
a
it
Harry Potter mobile game that did quite well
yeah,
that has all sorts of things like that.
But they didn't
But-
do it, and Hogwarts Legacy still
but they
sold.
didn't do it. And it
Yeah.
sold so well because people appreciate and people want those kind of like story-driven single-player experiences. Anyway,
Well, hopefully we'll see what 2024 has in store.
Mhm.
The final news topic here, Ben, I've never heard of this game. I have no idea what this is, but you do apparently.
Did you look into it at all?
I did a little bit. I got the gist of what this game is. It's a horror first-person shooter party game. You work
Yeah.
together.
So this game, I saw this like 3 years ago. Markiplier played it, and
hello.
I was watching it like this is terrifying, because like the thing is, so basically the gameplay of this game is you go down into like this big pit. There's like this expansive labyrinth of abandoned like science bases that you have to get through to reach certain objectives, and it's been like infected with this virus that has turned all the people there into like these kind of blind zombies. And so they've got like, they're all naked and they've got like these kind of crazy like pustule things going out of their heads. They're pretty scary. But the thing is, this is not a game where you want to go in guns blazing. It is very stealth based, because these things kind of function like the clickers in The Last of Us, where you want to be silent and kind of just crawl past them and they will stay asleep. But you make too much noise, like, you walk towards one of these sleepers, because like the main thing you have to do is you have to like sneak up on someone and stab them with like a knife or a spear or something like that, in order to like not awaken anyone else.
Oh, I do that all the time.
And then so if you make too much noise by like walking up to one and like not stopping when it starts like waking up, it'll wake up. You have to kill it fast, or else it will wake up the other ones, and then it creates like this chain reaction where if you do not kill the ones that are awake fast enough, all of them are going to wake up. And it is not a game where you want to sit and try and fight the zombies, because they will overwhelm you and they will kill you.
So in other words, you're telling me I need to play this game with John Krasinski and Emily Blunt.
Make sure where you're going is a quiet place.
It's a very so true.
What's it called, Ben?
GTFO.
You can do the math.
Oh, I have heard of this. Yeah.
And so,
but the lore.
They've got lore, the hidden lore. It's just so there is like this weird dichotomy, split story lore, kind of like the same thing that happened to the Legend of Zelda lore, where like you had one storyline that was being fleshed out, and then all of a sudden there was like a soft reboot, and then there was another storyline where they had like the same characters but they acted differently. And there was this one guy named Schaefer, who in the first storyline he's like unhinged, and he's like so you are people being trained to join like this mindless legion. That's what it's called. It's like the Legion, where you got a bunch of drone soldiers, and you're being trained for this, where like you're slowly like over the course of your missions, you're losing more of your personality, more of your memories. And then like you're doing these jobs for this person called the Warden, who functions under the company called it's like Dreyfus or something. Dreyfus. And like Dreyfus is basically like, By and Large and Wall-E. It's basically that. It's the company that just owns everything, because this is like a corporate dystopian future kind of thing.
Yeah.
They own everything and they have no care for morals. And so
Just like me.
You have this one in the first storyline. This guy Schaefer is kind of unhinged. He's trying to get you to like work against Dreyfus and the Warden, and try and like make sure that you guys don't lose your memories, because like, you're working with this team. You have up to 4 people.
Okay.
And but then all of a sudden, like, there was a soft reboot, and then all the old missions were gone, and you had new missions. And then Schaefer was now like very coordinated, very like to the books, like, okay, we're gonna do this, do your jobs, all that kind of stuff. And then it's this whole deal with like, as you go deeper into the missions, you start uncovering stuff like alternate reality teleporters, where you touch this thing and you get transported into a whole separate reality. I mean, I'm basically my news bit is just me fangirling over this storyline, which is really cool. But they just finished it, where now they re-released the old missions, and they have now converged into one singular point, where you have the 2 separate sides kind of coming together and being like,
oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Actually, these are separate realities, and you've been kind of hopping between the 2, because like there's this old ancient technology that has been like causing rifts in realities.
Aliens.
It's super in depth. The game is super scary, but super fun at the same time, because you have to be very tactical in the way you do things.
Ben, do you have it?
I don't have it, but I'm very much debating on getting it. I've been watching people play it.
The Lillian approach. Okay.
When you do get it, tell me, Ben, and I will probably get it too, and then we can game.
He goes, dude, the lore is crazy. The game, I've never played it though.
I've played a demo, the free demo. Okay. But
that's
I haven't actually like bought the game.
Well, Overwatch is slightly different in the fact that the gameplay technically is completely unrelated to the story. So that one is understandable, because playing the game won't literally do anything for you story-wise, because it's not a story game. But in this case, it's like, man, I know all about the Tears of the Kingdom lore. Never played it though.
So, wait, Ben, is it over now? Like the story is done, or are they still?
They're still going to be releasing stuff, and like, because it's like, this was kind of the point where
it's not finished. All right, you lied to me.
It's where the 2 points of the lore came together.
Converge. Okay.
Let it be known that Ben put on the agenda, lore finished.
I meant like the storyline is finished. It's gonna keep going, but like it's like how you have one book that finished.
It's wrong.
He lied.
He lied, as he has in the very beginning. Anyways, on the topic of lore, I guess that's all the news. But we got fun filler. This was brought up by Cort last night, and I thought it was a fun thing to talk about. So, like, you know, when you've got your story-based games, your RPGs, there's always the question that comes up when developers like announce what the story is going to be about, over the idea of having a voiced or a silent protagonist. And I feel like this, you don't really think about it, but then as soon as the idea is brought up, you're like, oh wait, no, I do have an opinion on this. It's just not something that you like think about.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about it, because I was thinking about, like, I feel like I'm curious, I guess, to hear if anybody has like a distinct preference for voiced or silent protagonists. Because for me, I'm like, I was just thinking about it, and I was like, I feel like some of my favorite protagonists have been voiced, and some of my favorite have been silent. Because you got some really iconic silent ones, like Link, Gordon Freeman,
Chell.
Did I say Gordon Freeman?
Gordon Freeman right? Also, he's also not voiced, but Chell isn't either. Basically, all
Chell,
of the main Valve protagonists are not voiced.
Yeah, Chell. No, I was.
Where were you going with Gordon Freeman? What?
Gordon Freeman, is that his?
That's Half-Life. That's his name.
What? Then what's the actor that has a very similar name?
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. That's right. I was worried for a minute that I was saying Morgan Freeman's name and not Gordon Freeman's
the
name.
very well-known silent protagonist, Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
But no, and then
Yeah,
you also
Gordon Freeman.
you also have the silent protagonist. Both Knights of the Old Republic games technically are silent protagonists, even though in the first one, the protagonist does have voiced lines that play when you're doing actions. But like all in all, like your dialogue options aren't voiced. It's very much the Link approach, where it's like, yeah, Link makes noises, but he doesn't actually say anything in the dialogue. Anything that he does do is very much like, oh, it's a one-off line, you know, it's not a. And that's the Knights of the Republic is that way.
But then you also got some really good voiced protagonists, you know,
like Master
you got
Chief,
some iconic Master
Commander
Chief,
Shepard,
Nathan Drake, Commander Shepard, Lara Croft, you know, like, you know, all these characters that are the characters you play as that are voiced, you know, and I don't know. I think it really.
I think it comes down to the kind of story you're wanting to tell. I think that if you're trying to go for a self-insert kind of story, like Knights of the Republic can be, then
like Legend of Zelda. Legend of
Zelda, it allows you to then read it off yourself, and it allows you to be the character. Whereas if you're trying to go where it's like the narrative, it's more about the narrative and less about you being the protagonist, like Mass Effect, like Halo, like the Tomb Raider games. It gives you, it tells the story better. It allows the game to tell the story a little better because the story, the developer is able to fully go, this is how we want the character to be because they have a voice. Whereas on the other side where it's like, you can determine how the character is going to be because you voice them. So I think it works better in those games where it's like, you make the decision, or you, you know, like the Knights of the Republic games.
Where would games like Bethesda-esque, like Skyrim, Fallout, or even Obsidian, like
I think
New
those
Vegas,
operate. I think those operate like the Knights of the Republic games, where it's like the morality of the character is up to you. You determine if the character's good or bad. So it helps that they don't have a voice because then the developers don't.
That's what I mean.
Not all of them do though, right? Some of them don't.
I don't think you do in Skyrim, but in the Fallout games, your character is voiced.
In all four of them,
like,
are they voiced in all four of them?
Pretty sure in New Vegas you're voiced. I'm pretty sure. I know, like I was thinking, like in Obsidian's Outer Worlds, that's kind of like
Outer
Fallout,
Worlds is different. Yeah, but like in Fallout, are you voiced in Fallout 4?
I didn't think you. I'm pretty darn sure. It's been a long time since I played.
Quick, someone fact check that.
But
I think my view on this is, the voice comes from whether or not you are playing as the character or you are playing as your character.
Yeah, but even like then, because it's like in Legend of Zelda, you're always Link.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's a general rule of thumb, and then there are a few exceptions. I feel like Legend of Zelda is the main.
Legend of Zelda is one, and so is Mass Effect in the other way.
But
in
like a
most
lot of
Legend of Zelda games, I don't know about Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, but in most Legend of Zelda games, you actually can choose the name for your character, even though Link is the default.
Yeah.
You do choose the name for, like, it's still Link, but I do feel
I know I get what you're saying though. It's like
to
you can change the name of Link and you can change his outfits and equipment, but it's still Link. Like you're playing as Link, but then like Mass Effect is the same way, but on the flip side of it, it's like you can make Commander Shepard look however you want, but it is still Commander Shepard.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna kind of say with like a game like Fallout or like Outer Worlds, where for instance in Outer Worlds, you make your character from the ground up. Like you design how they look, you design how they sound, you know, that you design how like their different skills and stuff. You're playing not as the character but as your character, but he or she is still voiced, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of an interesting and you choose what they say from a list of
options.
but how it's said is predetermined. It's like if you can say that
so
line.
It's kind of an interesting do you consider that a silent or a voice protagonist? Because
that's a voice
and where
protagonist.
does that fall in that line? You know,
I draw the line of voice protagonist of when you have dialogue options, every one of your dialogue options is voiced. That is a voice protagonist. And on the flip side, if they're not voiced, because I don't consider things like Link, even though he makes grunts and noises, and even though in the first Knights of the Republic game your character has like interaction voice lines, I think they're still silent.
Right.
Because their voice
But
lines
I guess
and their dialogue isn't
the,
voice.
the statement of it's either like it's silent if it's your character and it's voiced if it's the character. I don't know if that always holds up.
It doesn't
Link
always
is
hold
the
up. No.
character, and he's silent. Or like Outer Worlds, Fallout. That's
is
your
character, and they're not.
Like,
yeah, I think it depends. I think it really is just down to how it's done, because like in instances where there's no customization on the character, like Halo, Master Chief being voiced is fine because you are Master Chief. Like it is. I think it's how the narrative is written. It's just kind of like, who are you? What is the point of it? Is it meant to be like, oh, it's up to you what's going? Because Halo is very linear. There's no, you very much know who the kind of person Master Chief is. So he kind of needs to be voiced. Otherwise, then people are like, oh, but what if Master Chief is like this? It's like, no, he's voiced. He sounds like this. This is how he is. Whereas like in Fallout and stuff like that, like, yeah, you're voiced, but you determine which voice it is. You have some customization there. And I think that helps it be more self-insert because you can determine it. It's not just like one voice. Mass Effect, though, is where things get a little different, but it's like you create Commander Shepard, but Commander Shepard has a voice, so like the person that Commander Shepard is doesn't change a whole lot. So I think it's kind of like,
I think if in Mass Effect you can still kind of choose like his actions. Like you can choose.
You can choose the actions. That's why it's like
jerk,
I think Mass Effect is
to be a good
Mass
captain,
Effect is one of those where it's like you play as the character, but you can customize them to be you and make choices on them, but they're voiced one way. So it's like I think Mass Effect is like the really weird gray area that doesn't really follow the rules of like, oh, it's a narrative driven, but you kind of can be the person and determine what they do. So if they are voiced, it's like you determine what voice it is, or they're not voiced, or it's your one singular character. Whether and like Tomb Raider, like Halo, where it's like the character is established. You're playing through the story as them, and then there's Mass Effect.
I feel like in some instances. Oh, sorry. You go, Lillian.
Oh no. There's an important element of like whether or not the story is main character driven, or
That's also
it's more about like the lore. Like if the main character is like, and the changes in the main character is the important elements of the story, I feel like that more often you have a voiced character. Whereas if it's more about just like exploring the world and the lore of the world, and
you as the character isn't important to the universe
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
But I feel like the same kind of thing in some ways applies to that. Like for instance, games like Fallout, or Outer Worlds aren't about the character; they're about the universe it's building. But
and I think those work because you can customize the voice. I think that's where the key distinction is here, which technically isn't like the argument of silent versus voiced, but it like I feel like the customization of the voice accomplishes the same feat of having a silent protagonist, because you're able to customize it to be a little more personal. But like, because when you're playing Halo, you're playing you're playing Mass Effect. It's like you're playing those games and you're watching Commander Shepard and Master Chief like grow as characters, and so they need to be voiced a very specific way to be able to show those changes. Otherwise, it could get misinterpreted or done, or the changes aren't as obvious because you're the one having to like come up
to the story that there is a voice to that
then
character.
you're the one having to read it and be like, oh, so this is how they feel. It's slightly different. But if you take it then further, where it's like those are fairly like their development is like fairly linear. It's like Mass Effect has like some slight deviations, but it's pretty much one or the other. There's not really a difference. And Halo, it is one way. There's no other ending to Halo. I think the only time that gets a little interesting is in the Knights of the Old Republic games, because those very much are you are important to the story, and so is the world. Not only are you not voiced, but your character also goes through crazy character development, and that is where it's like, oh wait.
But there is some element of like, I honestly feel like, I guess here's a question: would you have enjoyed the Knights of the Old Republic games more if
Well,
the
and see
character
that's
had
that's where the MMO comes in, because the MMO is voiced. So like
Yeah.
the Old Republic MMO gives you a taste of Knights of the Republic, but if the character was voiced, and I think I would like to see a version of it with it voiced. To see what it feels like, because I feel like, especially with how Knights of the Republic is and how the story works, I feel like it could be pretty successful with a voiced protagonist, because it's like the game catches on to, like, it gives you dialogue options and stuff based on how you want to go. And so I feel like in certain ways, it's like some of those lines can only really be voiced one way. Like if you're going for the dark side option on the homeless person, it's like there's really only one way for that to come off, and it's like really
Saturday afternoon.
It's like really condescending and sarcastic. Or if you're being kind to, you know, the wounded veteran, like there's only really one way that the light side of that comes off. It's like you're not gonna, oh yeah, let me pick the light side dialogue option, but I'm gonna think that it's sarcastic. It's like, no, you get light side points for it. The game doesn't know that you're trying to be like evil because you nice because you want money. Like it I feel like it because of how rudimentary some of it's like for 2003, I feel like it could work as a voiced protagonist. But then there are certain games where it's like, I cannot imagine a Legend of Zelda game with Link being fully voiced. Like it just doesn't.
Yeah, that would be.
That's what I was.
I'm very curious to see the movie and what they do
I would
with
love
that,
to hear.
Having a voiced Link would be so weird.
Excuse me, excuse me, princess.
But I was gonna say, I think one kind of category of character that I feel like we've been talking about but haven't really delved deep into is that Link character, like Link and like Gordon Freeman, for instance,
and Chell that aren't
Freeman,
voiced,
Gordon
but it's
Freeman.
like you don't.
But like they're not voiced, but they are a set character that has this like character development. But it's like in the same way that you learn about Lara Croft, say, or Master Chief through their actions and their voice and their thing and like that, and you find out who they are as a character. I feel like Link or Gordon Freeman have similar things where like
personality
you find out who they are,
mannerisms.
I think
through his mannerisms, through his actions, through like the way other people talk about him and to him, like it's a little more of a nuanced like way to develop a character, because you're not just, rather than just having the character say I'm this, like they have to show it, you know, like because he doesn't talk. And so it's more like I feel like Link in a lot of ways is very similar to characters like Master Chief who have a developed character, but it's just shown in more creative ways through like action and other people talking about him and like, you know, just different things.
Well, and it also kind of goes to what kind of game it is, because with Halo, if you had Halo and then just removed Master Chief's voice, that's a really boring game.
Right.
Like Master Chief, like him talking and you being able to hear him and his, you know, his back and forths with Cortana and with the other Spartans and with, you know, the Arbiter and all of that. Like it's what carries the story, because it's a first person shooter. You kind of need a lot of that other stuff to like bring you in. Otherwise it's just a generic first person shooter. Whereas with the Legend of Zelda games, like those are very distinct games. So you don't need to have Link be voiced, because the game and the story is very much carried by the world and what you do as Link, whereas Halo is carried by Master Chief as Master Chief.
And I feel like Lillian was saying really good points about this. I kind of cut her off in the middle with just the excuse me, princess. But like she was saying, it should be very interesting to see what it is with the movie. Right?
Yeah,
well, I honestly,
how are you gonna
do that?
A character that is typically not voiced in a film adaptation in a way that still feels like Link.
The way I think they should do it, and obviously I'm not on the team that's making the movie, so I have no say, but like the way that would make the most sense to me is to develop Link's character in the movie in the same way that they develop Link's character in the games. Not through dialogue, not through his voice, but through his actions and through the way that other people talk about him, you know? And talk about him, and just like, you know, because I think I think they'll have to have Link talk a
He's
little
gonna have to
bit in the
talk
movie.
because it's just a movie.
Yeah,
That's
he'll
just
have
the
to have
nature of
some
film.
dialogue.
He'll have to have at least a few lines, but I think if they're smart, they'll have
Yeah.
him talk as little as possible, like,
Mhm.
and
I
have
agree.
most of his character development come from his actions and the things we
Visuals.
see him do, and the and
Mhm.
just like the way he interacts with people and just different things and his expressions, kind of like how I feel like they'll kind of have to do with voice what the Mandalorian did and Iron Man did
Yeah.
with facial expressions, because like Iron
Mhm.
Man and
Yeah.
Mandalorian, they had to make them like readable characters without them having any
And
expression on their face.
it's
That
the
was, like, a
hand motions and the
whole-
head
Yeah.
movements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
And
that
they
was a
did
whole
it.
thing that
They
Jon
did it,
Favreau
which
kind of
was
developed from
incredible.
scratch with Iron Man and Mandalorian. Yeah. And they totally did it. It totally worked. But I feel like
Yeah.
they'll kind of have to do a similar thing with Link in the movie without voice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which will be
We'll
an
have to
interesting.
see kind of how it goes because because like Link's not voiced, but it works because of the kind of game that Legend of Zelda is, and you get to do a
Mhm.
whole lot to determine who Link is. I think the ones where it is a little different is when you look at Portal and you look at the Half-Life games, because Chell and Gordon Freeman aren't voiced, but they are important. But you learn of
Mhm.
their character as you play. And
Gordon
'cause
Freeman more
Yeah.
so than Chell. I
Gordon
feel like.
Freeman more
Chell-
so with Chell, because Chell as a character really is just a vehicle to get you through the game. Because
Yeah,
like you
she's kinda
learn,
there.
in Portal 2, you like learn who like maybe what Chell is, like through the bring your daughter to work day and kind of the other backstory. Like you
Mhm.
kind of like learn like, oh, is Chell related to? Oh, Chell may not just be some random, but even if Chell is a rando, it doesn't really change a whole lot because the story isn't necessarily about Chell as a who she once was. It's about Chell as she is right then and there and her connection with the characters in the
Mhm.
present. There's no need for any backstory
Right.
before Portal 1.
Yeah.
Whereas with Gordon
Whereas I feel
Freeman,
like
Half-Life, Gordon Freeman was directly involved with what happens.
Yeah, he's much more of a Link-esque silent protagonist in that sense,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
because you learn about him and he has a set thing, but you learn about him through his actions.
So I
and
think
through
that's
the
kind of
way
like
other
that's kind of how you do this. If you're gonna do a silent protagonist, you either do fully silent, where like the story of them is not so much important, and the
Mhm.
story of them, they don't like their backstory is not important. You create you experience who they are through playing the game and through the decisions you make. So things like Portal, things like technically even
Mhm.
Minecraft. Like no one cares who
Mhm.
Steve is. Steve is whoever you make Steve to be. Like that is the
Yeah.
quintessential
Mhm.
silent protagonist of like the character is whoever you make them to be. Nothing else really matters. But then you have the silent
Mhm.
protagonist where like there is backstory and you learn their backstory and who they are as a person through the game, not because they don't have an established. You don't go into the game already
Right.
knowing like, that's the kind of person they are. Because when you start playing Halo, you're like, no, I know who Master Chief is from scene 1 because of how he acts and how he talks. Whereas things like Knights of the Republic and like Half-Life and Legend of Zelda, where it's like you learn what's going on not through them directly, but through everything else, kind of those around them tell you who they are. So I think it just kind of works with the narrative. How do you want the character to be, if they have backstory, how do you want that backstory to be conveyed? Through them themselves, like Commander Shepard and like Master Chief, or do you want to be able to figure it out, like Knights of the Republic, Legend of Zelda, and Half-Life, where you kind of learn it as you
Yeah.
go. There's no giveaway of like, this character is this way, because you hear them speak and you see what they do.
Yeah.
You're like, this is a good guy
It's just
character.
very, very different approaches to storytelling, and honestly, I feel like that's kind of the question of silent versus voice.
It
kind of
goes
hard to
with-
answer
It depends on the
because
game.
there's not really one that's better. Like
No.
I don't really know
Yeah.
if there's one that is inherently better than the other.
No, it
Mhm.
just kind of has come
I
down to
don't
game
usually-
design.
I don't usually have good things to say about Destiny, but what I feel like they kind of pulled this off very well. And the first storyline of Destiny, your character is voiced.
Mm.
They just have generic man voice, generic woman voice for
Mhm.
whichever gender you pick, and then you're left with that. But then after that, the character just kind of remains silent for the whole time. Like there wasn't like, it wasn't like
Oh.
they went mute or something where people were like, "Oh, you don't talk anymore." It was just like they just kind of talked at them and then
there was an interesting, because there was a long period of Destiny's development, especially like Destiny 2's main story, and a lot of its like later things where your character was, for all intents and purposes, mute. Like, he didn't speak at all.
Mhm.
Like, and it was supposed to be the same character as Destiny 1 and everything. Like, it's your same Guardian. So like, you knew he could because he had, but like he hadn't. But then there's a scene, and I won't spoil. I mean, I guess it's been years.
It's been a while. It's
since
the
Forsaken
first
came
time
out,
your
but-
your character speaks since the beginning of the game.
The dawn of time.
Is when Cade 6 is killed, and then it's like they just kind of looked at it and said, okay, everyone loved K6, so everyone is kind of unanimous on this, where they say we are going to kill the guy that killed Cade 6.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like a very unanimous thing. We're like, okay, very unanimous on this. This is everyone's voice saying, no, he's mine.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was kind of an interesting. I feel like in the beginning he didn't talk a lot. Your Guardian didn't talk a lot, but he talked a decent amount. And then he would have like little bits of back and forth dialogue, not a ton really, but like with Ghost, And then for a good chunk of like a middle bit, they just didn't have him speak at all, and it was just all dialogue for your character was done basically by Ghost, just your little Ghost companion guy, just talking for you. Like, people would talk to you and Ghost would respond. And sorry. And that was just kind of how it was, and people weren't like super in love with that, because they were like there were some scenes, like especially in Destiny 2's like story, like original like campaign, where like a character would be very clearly in a cutscene talking to you and like asking you a question,
and then you're not the one that answers.
And then Ghost will come in and answer it, and people were like, "This isn't like that stupid." And so like, so then when they had Cade 6 die, they brought back the voice protagonist, but just a little bit. Like, they had him say like
they have
like one like couple little lines, and then since then, I think they've had him like say things occasionally, but it's like super sparingly. So it's like he really only talks when it's absolutely necessary. And like Ben said, I think it works really well, because it's like it makes it so like he can talk, but he only talks when it's important. And so when he does say something,
it's an important line. It has weight.
Yeah, like
that makes sense.
So yeah,
I think another thing that kind of goes with the voiced is kind of like why the game developers making the decision of what they want people to remember and love the game for, because it's like when you think of things like Mass Effect and Halo, it's like, oh, I love those games, they're great games, and Master Chief and Commander Shepard, I love being them, experiencing it. Whereas you play something like Knights of the Old Republic, people don't be like, oh man, I fell in love with the protagonist, I love him. So no, it's like, oh, I love the gameplay, the world is awesome, I love the mechanics of the game. People don't remember the protagonist because the protagonist isn't meant to be like the memorable part of the game. I mean, it is, but it's kind of like the game was not, it is made in a way that it's like the main character isn't what you are. The main character, it's not their person. I think Legend of Zelda is the one where that's different, because it's like you love Link, you like have a connection with Link even though he says jack all. But it's like
his mannerisms
give him personality. But then you play something like Portal, and it's like, man, playing as Chell is something else. It's like, no, Chell's not the draw. The draw is literally everyone else.
I feel like that's less of a voice versus not voice, and more of a is the character and more. Well, no,
but it kind of goes hand in hand with it. Are you your
character or are you the character?
I think it goes together sometimes though, because like when you're playing Fallout, the purpose of Fallout isn't to get you to like fall in love with your character. The character is your vehicle to discover the world.
Right.
And you kind of like he's voiced. Yeah, Fallout is. But it's not a generic, like one voice actor is playing this named character. Like, it is your character, and the voice it's now a part of that.
But like in a case like that where it's your character, even though he's voiced, I don't feel like anyone's like, oh, I love the Fallout
No,
4
I think
protagonist, or I love the
I
Outer World protagonist.
I think it goes with it's in more circumstances people game developers seem to be more inclined to not give a voice, or at least not a voice all the time in the case of like Destiny, where your character is only voiced occasionally, whereas they're not going to like push the character as the character. They're going to push the game, and then you're a character in the game. And I think it seems more often that the voice or silent will go in line with that. Occasionally it won't, but in the cases where there is a voice protagonist and they're pushing the game and not the character, it's going to be you choose what voice it is. It's not just one voice fits all.
Yeah,
and so you're discovering the world, the story of the world. You're not discovering the story of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think games like, and I guess what I would say is, but like games like that can be made independently of whether they're voiced or not.
Yes, they can be. It just
like
there
Zelda
sometimes
or
seems to be a trend of like where
like
it works.
The characters are
where you are the character is the vehicle for you to discover the story. You are not the character discovering the story, like in Halo. And that kind of it helps you a little more as well, because now you're not thinking about the character as the character when they don't have a voice. It helps you kind of insert a little bit more and be like, okay, so this is what's going on, because the character isn't already kind of well established, and you get a connection to the world and not a connection to the character. And so you kind of like, it helps you kind of discover things a little bit more. And I think it just goes back to the narrative and how it works. Because I think there are some instances where a voice protagonist would kind of ruin the experience. Like if you gave Chell a voice, Portal is a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you gave Chell just grunts and stuff, like Link-wise, I don't think it ruins the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it works, because that's why I would love to play a Knights of the Republic game where it's voiced, but I am okay, and I think my preferred version of a game, if it's supposed to be a self-insert, like if you create your own character, I would like there to be no voice directly other than like grunts or like action voices, because in Knights of the Republic your character will voice if you like switch to them, and they'll be like, oh, on it, oh, I've got it. Or if you're opening a door, they're like done, oh, I can do that. Like I think those voice interactions work for a silent protagonist, because then it's like, oh, they have a voice, they have a little bit to them, but the dialogue isn't voiced, so you can fully determine how your character probably would say this line. Like I think the Link approach to silent protagonists is the best way of doing it, because then you can kind of like, you can give a voice to your character, but it's really like the exclamations and not so much them as how they are as a human being, like morally and stuff, but they are still a person, so they're gonna make noise. It kind of gives a little bit more like realism to it.
They're not
I feel like what it almost becomes is kind of if there's two classes of characters, there's the character and then the your character.
Your character.
There's a voiced your character, a not voiced your character, a voiced the character, and a not voiced the character.
And it seems like a majority of the time it's a voiced the character and a non-voiced your character, with occasional differences. But it seems like the default for the most part, because it's a lot harder to do a voiced your character. It is really hard to do that, because you have to give so many options.
I feel like a lot of times I've had, because the only major examples of a not voiced the character that I can think of are like Link and
it's Link,
Gordon Freeman.
Link and Gordon are like the only two.
But I feel like I can't really think of a lot of games where there's, I mean, I'm sure there are a ton, but of like a not voiced your character.
I think that it's because of how technology is now and how much easier. I feel like it was more so a thing 15
back in the day.
In the day, because nowadays
Skyrim is like that.
Because nowadays it's a lot easier to get a lot of different people to voice, because you can do it remote. You don't have to have people come into the studio to record those lines. So like because Baldur's Gate character, your protagonist is voiced, right?
I think so, yeah.
So like Baldur's Gate, your voice, but it's like if you go back basically before 2010, the early 2000s RPGs, basically none of those characters are really voiced. But then in the more recent, it's a lot easier to have voiced personalized characters. I would like to go, I mean, if you have a ton of options, then I think voice works, but I think because it's like everyone plays differently and everyone wants their character to be different, I think it's better to go silent, custom character, because it's a lot easier for the person who's playing to be like, I think my character would say this line this way. Whereas when you give it a voice, yeah, it's a voice,
Yeah.
but you're locked into one tone of voice.
I-
However their character says that line is how the character says that line.
I almost kind of wish that some games like
Give you the
Fallout
ability to turn
or
it off.
like Outer Worlds would give you the option to have just a no voice version of
Which
your
is
character.
why I like the silent exclamations only protagonist. I like the Link and the Knights of the Old Republic style, where it's like the only lines that are voiced are lines that only can be said one way. There's only really one way to be like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like, like okay, there's no need to have like custom, you know.
There's only
it
one way to
gives-
say yeah.
Like
What?
it reminds you that the character is still a human being with a personality, but like the intricacies of that personality is up to you, and everything else isn't. So my favorite is the non-voice person, the non-voice protagonist, but they have exclamations and like reactions, because the SAO games are like that as well. Specifically Fatal Bullet, you create your own character and you tell the game what voice you want your character to have, but none of the voice lines in the cutscenes or stuff are voiced. The only things that are voiced are like the good job voice lines or the exclamations and things like that. And I think that works really well, because then you're still you, and the voice that comes out is a voice that you chose, but it's not all over the place. So you still kind of have control over what kind of person the character is.
Yeah.
And that is the end of my 2 cents.
Yeah. It's an interesting
It is an interesting
Thought.
thought.
but I guess I mean is there I just don't know if there's really one that's
No, there's
inherently
not
better
one
than-
inherently better. It really comes down to
Right.
what kind of story you're wanting to tell. What role do you want the protagonist to be in? Do you want the protagonist to be a self-insert? Do you want him to be a static character that grows? I think it just comes down to, because there are certain games, like we said, like if you gave Link a voice, it's a completely different game. If you gave Chell a voice, it's a completely different game. You take away Master Chief's voice, it doesn't work anymore. So I think it's catered to the game and kind of like how it wants to tell the game. So there isn't a right or wrong answer. Like there's a preference, but even those preferences only extend to the specific kind of game. Like I love silent exclamation protagonists, but only in the self-insert RPGs, not in like a first-person narrative-driven game. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where we all stand for the most part.
Now
Anything
I'm just
else?
thinking about how they're gonna do the Link in the movie. Like that's
I'm more interested. How the heck are they doing Steve?
Oh yeah.
I honestly
heard
think
Jack Black's gonna play him.
Steve isn't, like, sure there will be a Steve, but I think it's going to be mostly like an original story told inside
Probably.
the
I think that
quote-unquote
works.
Minecraft universe.
Yeah. That would be the smart way to do it. Kind of like with Minecraft Story Mode, where they created their own like character.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be the smart way to do it.
Well, I think that is. We'll leave it at that, because that's a rabbit hole we don't need to keep. It's a deep
Yes,
rabbit
it is. Minecraft lore.
Anything else before we run things away? Going once, going twice. Okay, not sold. Anyways, with that, Knights of the D-Pad is an official publication of the Daily Universe. We'd like to give a special thanks to Alan Neves and Miles Romney for everything they've done and do to help us do this podcast. If you'd like to reach out to us with feedback, to say hello, give comments, ask Cort questions about the Dominican Republic, shoot us an email at knightsofdpadpodcast@gmail.com, all lowercase, no spaces, or I guess leave a comment on the YouTube videos. Both work. We will get to those comments whenever we see them. So with that, let's sign off. My name's Aidan.
I'm Lillian.
I'm Ben.
I'm Cort.
And we are Knights of the D-Pad. We will see you next week.